Hello, I'm Arif Fahrudin, welcoming you to another Asian Agribiz podcast. While the cloud of ASF continues to hang over the global pig industry, there is still much hope for the sector. Global population and disposable incomes are growing, and pork remains the preferred meat in many countries, especially in Asia, where the biggest growth is expected to come. Today, Asian Pork Magazine editor Isa Ki Tan will be talking with Robert Hoste about the challenges facing pig producers and how they might be addressed. Mr. Hoste is senior pig production economist at Wageningen Economic Research. He has 30 years of experience in economic issues on farm and sector level, as well as in supply chain cooperation and international studies. He has a wide network in the industry in the Netherlands and worldwide.
Hello, Robert. Thank you for joining me in this podcast.
Thank you, Isa, for inviting me. It's great to have this opportunity. I'm really happy.
It is no secret that the global pig industry is in the grip of African swine fever now. But as big as that problem is, there is a silver lining. Global pork demand and consumption are expected to grow. Admittedly, though, there are challenges. So let me begin by asking you, what are the biggest obstacles facing pig producers, especially in Asia where the growth is biggest?
I see five big challenges for the pig producers in the coming decades. And I'll go through them. And the first is animal health control, as you might expect. Stands number one for me since large outbreaks of severe diseases like African swine fever potentially break down the pig and pork industry, but also the food supply system. In China, pigs play a major role both culturally and in the consumption, and due to ASF, up to half of pig production eliminated. And this resulted in food scarcity and prices went up. So animal health control is really important, but it requires both a governmental strategy and farmers' awareness. Farmers should apply strict control measures, biosecurity. So that's number one, animal health control. A second point is risk management. The pork market and feed ingredients markets have increasingly been globalized, and so is the price volatility. Prices are going up and down more than they did in the past. And trade patterns are being disrupted in case of, for example, disease outbreaks, so the risks have increased. And especially family farms are being hit as their financial buffer capacity is often rather limited. Then I come to the third element, that's the production efficiency, and there is a major opportunity. Likely the average number of slaughter pigs per sow and year worldwide is somewhere around 17, I estimate, but some Western European countries, including Denmark and the Netherlands, have 30 slaughter pigs per sow and year, 30 and over. Also, the feed efficiency shows ample room for improvement with the overall feed conversion ratio of 4 typically worldwide, but as low as 2.5 in professional systems in Europe. So providing the world with pig meat, the 180 million metric tons, requires further efficiency improvement. Then my fourth element is data. Data actually is hardly being used among pig farmers. Farmers are no bookkeepers, no, but for optimal zootechnical performance, a management information system is indispensable. It gives insight into what happens on the farms, and decision making can be done in an objective way rather than based on gut feeling. Data analysis necessary to support quality programs to convince consumers about the quality of the product. And pigs can be given electronic ear tags for individual management rather than group management. The big data and smart techniques, to summarize, you could say they have three application areas. It can be used to optimize the production efficiency, the so-called precision livestock farming. It can be used for labor saving by automation, robotization. And thirdly, it is necessary for guarantee throughout the supply chain. Last but not least, my fifth element is unlocking the human skills. When workers only apply their hands, not their brains, they will do their prescribed task. But then don't expect them to see irregularities, nor will they do more than agreed. I believe there's a huge potential in farm workers. Sure, they should do their own task, but with a drive to perform better for the animal and the farm. It gives them joy of labor, which cannot be compensated for with money only.
These five elements you mentioned tie in with the four broad themes that you identified as four Ps that could help the global pig industry produce 180 million tons of pork by 2050. Can you elaborate more on what these four Ps are and how they relate to these elements?
Thank you. The four P's, so the people, planet, profit, and the pigs. And I mentioned the people aspect already. There's need for concerned employees, skilled managers. And as labor will become more expensive in the future, wages increase. Also, the value of labor should be increased. It should be no longer simple work. As far as possible, the employees should be given responsibility, and they should be skilled workers. Given the increasing lack of workers, there's an increase in efficiency and labor efficiency. And then there's also discussion about smart farming. Should smart farming solve all the problems where labor is limitedly available? No, in my opinion, smart farming is only if is only does only make sense for smart farmers. As an example, it is good that there is a ventilation computer in the stable. But if one worker doesn't understand ventilation at all, then the computer is just a black box. So smart farming should be applied by smart farmers. And there is need for education. Another people aspect, the first P, is the societal acceptance. It should be worked on that the society accepts the pig production, the animal production, because it's their food system. Especially in densely populated areas, we see less acceptance of animal production by the civil society. So I would say in the first P, the people aspect, it is wise to unlock the human skills, give them, raise the awareness, give them responsibility, and further their drive. That's the first, that's the people component. A second P is about the pig. The pig is related to, let's say, animal health and biosecurity and animal welfare. Farm workers, farmers need a focus on animals. They should see the animal, their needs, their living circumstances. And this is also unavoidable for optimizing zootechnical performance. The third P is the planet. The planet Earth is quite crowded with people and animals, and this results in climate and environmental damages. I recall the greenhouse gas emissions, the soil deterioration, loss of biodiversity, rainwood forests, etc. And well, there's still quite some room for efficiency improvements in terms of feed and zootechnical efficiency, but also lowering food losses. So not only in the production side, but also in the consumption side, lowering the food losses. And the message here at the planet point is that we should transfer the earth to the next generation in no worse state than we received it. And the fourth P, that's the profit. The P of profit. It's a precondition in food production. To be able to deal with fluctuating prices, there's need of risk management and supply chain management. And entrepreneurs are demanded to balance the challenges and the opportunities.
You noted the need to have the right people in pig production operations, a challenge since there are skills gaps and labor shortage. In many parts of Asia, though, labor is still cheap. Also, many producers still tend not to pay too much attention to skills but rather to labor costs. What would encourage producers to go on to more skilled labor?
I see your point. Well, we foresee a rapid structural change in the East Asian pig industry, with large players dominating the market. With all the troubles that ASF has brought, it can also be used as a new starting point. And the production efficiency of the large players is typically far higher than with the small scale producers. And their biosecurity measures, they will be very strict. Production costs will be lower. So I assume small scale production will fade out in due time. And then comes the staff availability issue. Staff availability in these large farms might become really a critical issue. On one side, there's automation and robotization that will be the consequence. And the other side, there's an increasing positive approach to farm employees is necessary. So give them education, payment, and incentives when they work well, and also give them responsibility. It's really necessary to improve the skills of the employees, and this is not being done automatically. It should be really focused on, and entrepreneurs should be told, please give your farm workers responsibility, give them room to further develop themselves.
You also noted the right practices in the farm, and ASF has highlighted the need for strict and proper biosecurity. In this part of the world, initial compliance to strict biosecurity is good, but eventually farmers become lax. What can be done to change the mindsets of producers and farm workers?
I think it is necessary to have a combination of elements, and one is there is need of governmental policy. The government should have a clear policy on how to deal with animal diseases. For example, the number of contacts among farms should be reduced. What I learned in China alone, there are over 260,000 animal traders. So many people trading animals. And this should be reduced, as well as distances of animal transport. You can transport an animal from one side of the country to another side or maybe even to another country. But this brings also lots of risks. And so the government should give measures to reduce all these potential contacts. And this should also be enforced. So that's one, that's the government. But then the producers themselves, the farmers, the farm owners. And I think experience is sometimes the best remedy. I remind of a farmer in the Netherlands. He gave one of his farms, he had a few farms, he gave one of his farms to his son as a kind of preparation for the total takeover later. And his son made some wrong decision. The young farmer had to bear this loss of some 20,000 euros, which is half a year's income, but he never forgot the lesson. So he had to pay for it, but he never forgot it for the rest of his life. So experience is not the easiest, but it's a very good teacher. Another example from the Netherlands, also related to the first point, is the last outbreak of classical swine fever we had in 1997, so almost 25 years ago. Since then, the farmers became far more aware of the risks of spreading diseases, and the trading system was changed. There was a maximum number of farm contacts introduced. So depending on the type of farm you had, so sows or finishers, it was allowed to have only 2 or 3 suppliers and farmers where you could sell your pigs. And this helped really good. Till now, no classical swine fever appeared. So experience is the best teacher, I would say. And that's the second point. Um, Related to ASF and animal diseases, a third is that I would say dedicated supply chains are very helpful, where feed companies and pig farms and abattoirs are cooperating. So then there's limited trade of animals outside these supply chains. There's just trade of animals within the supply chains. And that's also a good way to reduce all the animal contacts. And the fourth element is communication. Just show good and bad examples of where ASF entered a farm and where it did not enter the farm. What did the farmer here? What did he do there? Where are the differences? Showing the consequences, showing by, let's say, mutual learning. So one farmer could learn from another.
You talk about the environment also, and Asian producers should pay more attention to reducing the environmental footprint in production. While government should drive this agenda, how can producers themselves be encouraged to do this?
I think it is partly related to the culture. To look at today or also to look at tomorrow and the longer term, let's say. So partly this is just related to culture. You cannot easily change this, but I think, well, let's see how it is done in my country or in Western Europe. It's typically often done in a combination of legislation and farmers' freedom to implement. So the government is setting legal requirements, minimum requirements, and the farmer has to implement it in some way. As an example, ammonia emissions should be reduced in Europe, in the Netherlands, Every farm has some ceiling, a maximum amount of ammonia emission, and then the farmer can then decide himself whatever technique he will use. He can choose what suits the best to the farm, and this way it is also the cheapest solution because the farmer will then always look at the cheapest solution, what works the best on his farm, as long as he is fulfilling the requirements of the government. The point is that you should also measure the outcome. So not only believing the blue eyes of the farmer and say, oh, he will do so. No, it should also be measured what is coming out. So ammonia emission in this particular example should be measured. What is coming out? How much ammonia emission? It's measured. This farmer is doing well, or maybe he is underperforming. And based on this, you can reward or punish the farmer and say, well, you should do more. If not, you will be given a fine, you will be given a punishment. You have to pay for this. Or if he is doing more than the legal requirement, you can give an incentive. You can give a kind of a bonus and say, well, you're really a good farmer, you're looking forward. And I think also it is a matter of awareness. I like this term because awareness means a farmer is looking to the future. You tell him, what do you want to have on this particular place in, let's say, 25 years? How would the farm look like? Should it be the same? Should the environment, should the nature be destroyed, or should there be still a suitable place for pig production and to live where people would like to come and see your pigs coming? So showing the future as a kind of well, let's say a picture for the future where you want to strive for as a farmer.
Pig production is still a business and profit remains key. But Asian producers are still price sensitive, so least cost production is still the main focus. You mentioned earlier that vertical integration with a good value and supply chain is the way to go. Given that vertical integration may be slower to come in some markets, what could producers do to be more efficient and profitable?
Well, that will be not an easy answer. We have no silver bullet. Silver bullet. This is to say there's no single technological solution and say, well, we do this way and then everything is solved. There's no simple answer. What helps very well here in Europe, in Western Europe, where margins are very small, farmers have to survive. Then they look into a mirror. They look into the mirror of their own farm, and it is being helped, being supported by someone else. Farmers want to compare their results with other farmers and look what they can learn from it and see, okay, here on this particular performance indicator, I see that I can improve, and maybe on the other performance indicator, I do a very good job. So the one can learn from the other. It's mutual learning by comparison. This is a really helpful approach, which works here in the West. I'm not sure whether that's also suitable for Asia because the culture is different. But what I also see is what I learned from my studies in Asia is that the market prices are quite good. Not only at the moment, but also over time, the market price for pigs is high enough to make some margin where you can easily live off, which is different with the situation here in the Netherlands. You have to really to work hard and to do your utmost best, and still then part of the farmers will not survive because the profitability is not so good. I think that low prices are the best trigger to improve the performance. So the government is sometimes supporting the market, keeping the market price on a rather high level. And that's not only the market itself, but also the government that is supporting the market price level because that's good for the farmers. But meanwhile, because of the high market price and the good margins, the trigger to innovate is reduced. So the best trigger to innovate is a very low market price. Well, I don't wish that to the farmers, but it would work the best. And now sometimes the market prices are very good. At this moment, they are very good in China, in South Korea, and other countries around. That's nice for them, for those farmers who are in production, but it's not the best time to innovate. And I expect the market prices will go down in well, soon, maybe next year or in a few years' time. And then it might be time to be very negative and say, oh, the margins are too low. No, that's exactly the time to innovate. So I would say to farm owners, when the prices are low, then think of the best innovation. That's the best time to innovate.
Let me go back to data and its importance. In this region, data gathering and recording is still problematic. Either the government is not collecting data well, and at the same time, producers may not be willing to share their data. Please explain why it is so important to collect data and keep accurate records.
So there's a lot of scientific work has been done in the past to show that those farmers who use a management information system, they have a higher performance than those who just do it on their out of their mind, let's say. And as long as you have 20 sows, it's easy to remind when they were inseminated or just make a little note somewhere. That's easy. And then it's not so really necessary. But when you have a large farm, you have lots of processes, you have lots of animals, you have lots of things to keep in mind. It's simply not possible to have it all in mind. And then maybe workers are in the farm and they don't know all the details either. So you should note it down, you should put it in some computer system to learn yourself, not only to share it with the neighbor, which would be also beneficial, but the first benefit would be for yourself to know exactly, well, this particular sow was inseminated, but she came back in heat. Why is it? It's always in the same place in the stable, or it's always in the same season. It is a sow from a typical breed. So you can analyze this based on data. And without data, you don't know anything. So especially with the larger farms, it is necessary to record the data to learn from it, not only for yourself. Um, Assume the piglet production and the finishing, grow finishing is split, as in many countries, many systems. Then the grow finisher wants to know where do the piglets come from and what was the performance of the mother of the sow, because the piglet should grow in the best way and the most efficient way. So the customer of the sow of the piglet producer wants to know the quality of the sow, and quality can be expressed in data. Assume you are a growing finishing farmer and you sell your pigs to the abattoir. The abattoir wants to have the best pigs. And what is the best pig? Well, let's say the best meat quality or fat layer or whatever. So you have to measure, you have to show by objective data that you are what you are producing. The first benefit of the data is for the farmer himself or herself, knowing how the animals are producing, how they are performing, and based on that, you can make the right decisions. I did research in South Korea, and we asked farmers, do you use a management information system? And if so, how often do you use it? And I know from South Korea that about half of the sows is being recorded in a management system. The most professional farmers do so, but only half of the sows. And those who use a management information system, we asked, how often do you use it? There were two typical answers: once a week and once a month. I will tell you how we do it in the Netherlands on a daily basis. On a daily basis, every new data is being recorded in the management system. And on a weekly basis, it's being analyzed which sow should be replaced, which whatever kind of feed should be changed, or all these kind of decisions should be made based on data. The more data you have, the better information you have. I remind the farmers in the Netherlands who didn't use a management information system long ago. They didn't survive. They are no farmer anymore. So it is typically related to the farmers who have a longer term view on their farm, who want to make the right decisions. They need data and they need to record the data, even when that is not their hobby. But data recording, data analysis is really beneficial.
Management information systems like these, do they cost a lot?
No, actually, on an average sow farm, let's say we have sow farms, 800 sows in the Netherlands, and they pay less than 1,000 euros per year. So that's really not much money. That's not the point. But it is the farmer should make the first decision. Yes, I want to make use of the system. And if I make use of it, I will do it frequently and correctly.
While ideally these four P's should receive equal focus, in some cases that may not be possible. Which of these four P's should producers pay most attention to, and from which the others may follow?
Yeah, that's a good question, because ideally they should indeed be equally have equal focus. It's like a chair with four legs. So are the four P's. So the chair is standing the best with the four P's. But okay, if you would um, make some selection, I would start with the people component. Because on the farm, there's need for skilled workers who have an eye on the animals, the pig, and on the planet. But it starts with the workers. And the people component also includes the focus on consumers. And making profit is also related to fulfilling the need of consumers. Pig producers are part of the feed system. They are feeding the world. And in the end, if you want to make money, you need to know what are the consumers really willing, what are they demanding. And if so, I can make money, but only with the right decisions, with the right quality. So me as a farmer, or as a farm worker, the people component, I would say it's the most important here.
Thank you very much, Robert, for joining us today and sharing with us your insights.
Thank you. It was my pleasure to do so, to give answers to your questions. And should you have other questions, I'm prepared for that.
Indeed, challenges abound for global pig producers, and addressing them may seem difficult, but they are not insurmountable. By focusing on the four themes of people, pig, planet, and profit, these challenges can be met, and a global pork production of 180 million tons by 2050 can be achieved. In Asia in particular, focusing on the people component will help professionalize the industry and boost its development, both economically and sustainably. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Visit www.asian-agribiz.com to download these and our other podcasts and get more information about Asia's animal protein industry. You can also subscribe to the Asian Agribiz channel via Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Once again, this is Arif Farudin saying thanks and inviting you to join us in our future podcasts.